This is a clouds weather alert. Good Monday afternoon, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud coming on the air right now with some strong storms here moving across areas, especially of north central Florida. I know it's kind of an odd situation because we don't have any formal warnings, and normally I wouldn't be jumping in, but I just had a history of some wind gusts there of 45 to 55 miles an hour over the last little bit and some power outages. So this is also, a situation where this is covering a lot more of the area here geographically than what we generally get with like pop-up summertime storms. So even if these aren't peaking out quite as strong or, into severe, they're still impacting more people here. So we're going to be with you for a little bit as this gets to Lake Butler, Stark, and well, we just got a warning. So I guess that's, maybe reason why, maybe it was a good idea to jump in here. So, okay, we'll go to the Stark area in just a moment, but let's see this warning here until 1:15 as we're looking toward areas there and toward Baker County. So, and also parts of Duval as I go ahead and click around, and Nassau and Charlton and toward southeastern Georgia. So, this is coming down here. This is the first warning of the day, and let's look at the velocity. It does look a little bit enhanced here as we look at things just north of McClinney especially. So, you can kind of see here east of Kinney, watching things carefully on the Doppler radar scans, seeing 64 miles an hour. So yeah, just got to be taking precautions here, even into far southern Charlton County from about St. George down toward the south there. But then most of that's North Florida, North Central to Northeast Florida here as we're looking at the overall picture. I know some people call Baker North Central, some call Baker Northeast. The others are, of course, Northeast, Duval, and Nassau. But you can see some really strong wind in here right now on the Doppler scan, so on up here. I'll back it up the last few frames, and we had, some of that velocity really coming into play here. So let me go ahead and read that statement off from the Weather Service in Jacksonville here. I'll put it back on reflectivity mode, and we'll go ahead and watch the situation here as I'll check the information I'm seeing. I know lightning's been detected within 15 miles of where I'm at here in Bradford County, eastern Bradford, but into toward Baker. We have the severe thunderstorm warning to 1:15. So it is for southwestern Nassau, southeastern Baker, as well as west central Duval and south central Charlton counties. At 12:49, a severe thunderstorm is located near Glen St. Mary, or 19 miles north of Rayford there, moving east at 30 miles an hour. McClinney, Glen St. Mary, St. George, Briceville, Baldwin, and White House Airfield. So again, just trying to give you guys the very latest here on the situation. Again, we were just going to jump in for the strong storms here, and then since we jumped in here, we got this warning to the north. Not getting any advance notice or anything from the Weather Service, so it's just something here. I was looking, and I didn't think we necessarily get a bunch of warnings, maybe one or something like that. Now the way that's popping out, I'm starting to wonder if we're going to get more. I mean, because that really started to pop out on velocity here in just the last few minutes. The temperature is so warm here out toward the east, as I'll show you on the map, and that's really helped things really to destabilize here as we're looking with more of it. It's more like what you would see in the spring months. That's why I was kind of thinking we should jump in here even if it wasn't severe officially. But let's look down here toward Lake Butler. You can see some pretty strong winds and velocity here, 41 miles an hour. I know some of these showing up a little bit stronger earlier on back out toward Lake City. And I know some of these pixels here were, I think it was picking up on one that wasn't actually legitimate, so in that 63 gust. But you can kind of see here, we had a gust of 45 at the Lake City Airport at 12:15. We also had a gust in Hamilton County earlier on to 55 miles an hour there, out toward Swanee Springs, 6 miles northeast of there. So just some noteworthy information as we're looking at the overall picture. 51 mile an hour gust in southern Taylor County, 41 mile an hour gust there as we get a little bit further north. So these storms have a history, of strong wind, not necessarily getting to severe limits, which is 58 miles an hour. That's why we haven't had any yellow boxes, but now there's that concern here, just in the last few minutes, that we could get that here in toward parts of Baker as I go ahead and drag that on down, Charlton, Nassau, and Duval counties. So again, we need to go ahead and take precautions up here now as I'm looking at the very latest information. But another reason I decided to go ahead and jump in, kind of a little early is this power outage map. Everybody's getting power outages from this line here, even though, we hadn't had any warnings. It doesn't necessarily take 58 to cause some isolated power outages here. So, 58 mile an hour wind gusts. So that's why, more of a widespread situation here we're seeing in the Doppler algorithms. as I'm watching things, as I'm giving you guys the very latest details. It's impacting more folks. Union County already seeing some outages. I suspect Bradford will have some outages here soon, even though we don't have a warning. May not necessarily meet the criteria for a warning with 58-mile-an-hour wind. We have some strong wind coming on in nonetheless, though the Weather Service is talking about maybe up to 50 miles an hour coming here into Bradford County. So let me go ahead and look. That's where I'm at here, east of Stark. So let me go ahead and we'll look here at the information from them with the special weather statement. So wind gusts up to 50 miles an hour and pea-sized hail, talking about the scenario here as we get towards dark through about 1:30. So I know I put it out here on social media just a little while ago. I thought about 1:10 is when Stark would be getting into this, and that's about on, target here. Yeah, as we're looking at the scenario, you can see some of this wind. It seems like this to the north is really starting to take off a little bit more, but sometimes it's the way the radar is hitting things too. This could still be winds to 50 miles an hour down in here and down toward Gainesville. We're watching that concern as well over the next little bit, but this could be to 60 miles an hour here as we're getting into toward areas there about Baldwin, McClinney area. So we need to go ahead and take precautions as we're looking at this overall scenario. We need to go ahead and take precautions here. You can kind of see some of that wind enhancement. It's right there. Some of it's actually getting into Georgia, which, I know we put it on the stream here. It's about Florida, but this little area here, this little area that dips this down in here is technically part of Georgia, Charlton County. I mean, it is Georgia. It's just the way the maps are drawn, but it'll be back into just Florida here soon with this concern. So just how the boundaries are drawn. But again, I'm just trying to give you guys the very latest here on the scenario against severe thunderstorm warning parts of Baker, Charlton, Nassau, Duval to 115. But we've been watching some of this action further down toward the south here. And then let me go ahead and go to our power outage information a different way. And we'll go ahead and show you here that we have about 500 out in Suwannee County, 100 out in Hamilton County, 200 out in Columbia County there as we look at this information. And then I'll click on Gilchrist County, 1,500 in the dark, 800 in Dixie County, 300 in Levy County, even some in Duval already. I'm not sure that's exactly weather related because we haven't really had the storm action in there too much yet. But again, just continuing to give you the latest here on this scenario. Again, we have a severe thunderstorm warning now for parts of Baker as well as Charlton there. So Baker, Charlton, Nassau, and Duval until 1:15. So some wind enhancement here within the Doppler algorithms in that one direction. You can see the worst is generally just north of McClinney, but McClinney's getting it pretty nasty too with some concern here. I mean, they're right on the edge, right on the periphery, because I think, the stronger winds might be, if we had them in McClinney, probably north side of town, as we get here north County Road 223A there. Let me get our other roads on here. Get our other road information on here. And then County Road 23C as well. You see Stillbridge Road. Some of the worst could be more in that part of Baker County with this as we're updating you guys on the information. But you can see here, this looks like some pretty hefty wind there in Union County, 44 miles an hour. And this is headed off toward the Rayford area, around Florida State Prison there and the like. Already starting to get into some of that probably as this is moving in pretty quickly. And Laurie will be getting into it pretty soon here. So, again, I just got to be very mindful of the scenario as these conditions deteriorate here across areas of north central Florida, northeast Florida here over the next little bit. So, just got to be paying attention as we look at the overall situation. Let's go back here. We're going to go back an hour, and you'll be able to see the progression of this a little bit better. That more linear mode here, more of a line formation like what you would see in the spring, something along those lines here versus the pop-up stuff we generally get in summer. So a little bit more widespread coverage of it, maybe not as much of a burst of wind energy, but a little more sustained, but maybe not peaking out quite as high, maybe not causing as much damage in the worst, hardest hit areas, but more areas impacted here, if that makes sense as we're looking at the overall scenario. So there is a formal risk of severe weather, at least there was before this latest SPC outlook. I'm sure we still have it. And you can see we have that formal risk here for quite a bit of the area as we had that destabilization Speaking of the destabilization, let's see some more storm energy information. You can see some of those higher joules per kilogram values even getting a little bit higher than what this was showing, to be completely honest. I changed some settings on here so we could see the numbers, but these are actually a little on the low end even from what I was seeing on some analysis type of information behind the scenes. So, to the east anyway. To the west, we've seen things become more stabilized, but toward the east, you're more unstable. So, and that allows for more energy storms able to take advantage. So, again, that's where we are with this right now. That's where we're at right now. Again, some really strong wind coming on in towards Stokesville and southern Charlton County. But then look at these areas in the path here in Nassau County. Verde, Ingle, Bryceville. You guys could have some damaging winds. Not the strong winds, but you could actually have, something that causes officially severe type of criteria damage per se, and that it's 58 or above. So that's when you start having more of the power outage potential that goes from isolated to scattered there. As we're looking at things, just charge your devices up here as you're in the path of this, maybe toward Jacksonville Airport as well. Other thing I noticed with the scan, it seems like it's becoming just a tad bit more disorganized. We're getting some development out ahead, like what you would expect in summertime, which could weaken the one line here and kind of make things a little more muddied, which could actually help us out a little bit around Stark for not getting maybe quite as strong of winds, but we'll see. We'll have to just wait and see here as we look at the overall situation. We'll see what they decide to do if they issue another advisory to the south. I suspect they would here as we watch. But again, we're watching this warning right now toward parts of Baker County as we monitor the scenario here. 55 miles an hour of wind going on up there. This is right near State Road 121, right near the Florida-Georgia border. It's very rural down in South Charlton County, by the way. But in Nassau, it's a lot more populated as we get over toward areas there like 301, US 301 there. The impact as we look toward that zone here over the next little bit. Of course, we have it here in Stark, 301, as we have a new advisory as well now to the south. But, it goes way up in the country here, way past our area to the north. But it does impact areas here. This threat toward Nassau along 301, that potential coming on in. So let me go ahead and see what the new advisory is. We also have, I know we have viewers around Tallahassee. We did have an advisory over there, but stuff to the west had kind of faded. That's why I'm not focusing on that as much. You don't see an advisory now. We did have one here for some gusty winds coming through. I know we have folks that watch us around there, quite a few folks that watch us around there. But we had some gusty winds coming through, but compared to the last, several days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, wasn't reaching that severe limit. So, comparatively not as impactful, but we'll continue to watch things over there, obviously, as we give you guys the latest. But let me see what the Weather Service said there in Jacksonville about the information on that new advisory. What type of winds are they going with for Gainesville? I know Gainesville Airport's been getting some pretty strong winds lately as well. As we're looking at the overall situation, let me go ahead and see here. We're going to go ahead and see what they're saying. They're going gust to 50, by the way, on that advisory. That includes, areas up into southern Bradford. They're about Stark and to Keystone. Another thing, too, I know it seems a little weird, but, so for one, we cover 38 counties. That's, a pretty broad area here. But what I was going to say is, if you've been with me over the years, I know we used to cover a little bit bigger, but we tried to enhance things. But my point is, Tallahassee over the years gets hit by a lot harder and more impactful weather, in the broad sense here compared to our Jacksonville counties. So strong storms around north central Florida, northeast Florida, are something that are a little more noteworthy than out toward Tallahassee, to be completely honest with you. And we actually have a severe warning now since we've jumped in here with this. So it's a little bit odd when you talk about it like that. But strong storms kind of sometimes they could still be impactful. The sun's still out here in Bradford, and we're about to get into some rain and storms, for instance. So things are destabilized, and this might catch people off guard more. We don't get the storm action quite as much to the east, especially the higher end stuff to the east. It's hitting higher end, but for us, since we don't have as much of a reference point for the higher end, this is still pretty noteworthy. That's why I'm a little more concerned than I generally would be for stuff where we had just the advisories until we had that warning issued a few minutes after we jumped in here. But again, just trying to give you guys the very latest. You can see this a strong wind here coming on in. As we look, as we update you, you can see right there around 121 and then getting into toward Nassau County. Let's do a track. Let me do a track on this. So the Weather Service, Jacksonville office, they're tracking this east at 30 miles an hour. So let's go ahead and do a track on that. So it's going to be at the airport at 142, Callahan at 135. And then let's change this up so we get some of the small communities in here as well. You have Riceville there at 109, St. George at 109, and then areas like Crawford at 130, Ratliff at 135. So kind of giving you guys an idea of some of the areas in the path that may be damaging winds. Now the other winds on a localized level could be damaging to you, but they're not officially damaging based on severe criteria of 58 miles an hour. But if you have a tree down in your yard, I mean, you don't care if it's 58 or 55 or whatever, it's still impacting you. So again, just trying to give you guys the very latest here on this scenario. We're going to go ahead and keep you informed here. You can see around Stark, we don't have as much lightning on some of this as we did earlier on. We don't have as much lightning. We had some more lightning back out here, but to the north it's kind of clustering some in toward Baker and then again in toward parts of Duval here in Nassau. We have Charlton with a threat, but again, just got to be very cognizant here of the situation. Let me see if there's any questions, comments, or any of the viewers at home. I'm going to check that computer here real quick behind the scenes. I see Top Cat watching. We have viewer there towards South Carolina watching as well. Just appreciate everybody tuning in and trusting me on this Monday afternoon as they track these strong to severe storms across, mainly north central and northeast Florida, but technically a little bit of southeast Georgia with Charlton County involved in this warning here as well. So just appreciate everybody tuning in. Looks like 20 folks watching right now. Just appreciate everybody tuning in. 23 now over on YouTube. Just appreciate your viewership, your trust in me here on this Monday afternoon as I try to keep you informed on the latest developments here. So let's go ahead and see what is happening here. Again, we have the severe thunderstorm warning. When we first jumped in, we just had the significant weather advisory scenario, but now severe thunderstorm warning as we're looking here, as we're monitoring things, just trying to update you the best we can. Let me see what we have in terms of power outages. So let's go back over there. We'll look at this information. You see Gilchrist. I mean, that's quite a few out. Percentage-wise, there's not a huge population over there, but you see a lot of outages. This is kind of what I was getting concerned about and thought we better jump in here for Bradford County. We're going to have some outages here in Bradford County. I'd pretty much be willing to guarantee that here as we look ahead, if we're not already starting to see some of those ongoing, in terms of the process of that happening now with the outages just not being quite reported into the system. So let's go ahead and see here some of this wind. We have 36 miles an hour there right toward State Road 100. But it's possible it could be a little higher in localized spots in Alachua County, seeing little pixels here of wind 31, 36, 39, 34. It could be a little higher because this is getting closer. This more, really active type of the part of the line, more enhanced part of the line is getting closer to the radar. So we may not be seeing the full, really just the depth of the wind potential here on the areas further south and west. It may be kind of obscuring that just a little bit here. So just something to kind of bear in mind. We're getting a little closer on the distance too, which we're getting the 55 type of winds at points, and we're getting closer to the radar now. And it's a situation where sometimes it measures things at a certain height a little differently, and as you get a little bit lower down, occasionally maybe things at the surface are getting up there, but at a certain height, it's going a little lower with the winds and they're actually getting down to the surface too, maybe 55 and 50 miles an hour, something like that here in a few spots. I do think because of that development out ahead, we might have seen a little bit of weakening in the structure of this, and that might reduce the wind speeds a little though. So we'll just have to wait and see. Let me go ahead and check some more information behind the scenes here. Let me just check some details. Going through some different storm reports and the like as we look out toward Lake Butler. Not seeing winds that have gotten too strong there with the gusts. No tropical storm force gusts showing up in some sources that I have over there right now, but we'll just continue to watch. That doesn't mean in somebody's backyard we couldn't have got a gust there to like 40 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour or something. You see 55, they're coming into Nassau County now, right there around County Road 121. You have, these are some interesting road names here. Looks like Setting Down Drive, Bullock Bluff Road. I know when we were tracking storm accident last week in Georgia, we had a Lois Lane, a road called Lois Lane. That was really interesting. But, here pretty, interesting sometimes on these hyperlocal levels when we look at the road names, things like that. So as we go ahead and keep you informed here, it's going between our different scans, our different viewpoints, just trying to update you the best we can. You see some lightning here, not a whole bunch comparatively to some of these pop-up storms we get. So maybe not getting as much warning about this wind potential here. There is some, not as much really around Bradford, but I'm not really hearing the rumbles of thunder now here around Bradford. I haven't really heard too much on this here on this Monday. So it's something we're still going to have some wind coming in, but you're not going to necessarily be warned except for the skies are turning dark. I see our tree out there, one of them kind of blowing around in the corner of my eye. So let me see what type of wind speed I'm getting on my anemometer now here around Stark. We're at 88 degrees. It was 90 a few minutes ago, and it's going to drop here. It's going to drop pretty quick. I see 7 miles an hour is the peak so far. Now 9, so 9, but that's not overwhelming. 12. You kind of get the idea. It's picking up some here right around Stark, but we're only about 7 feet up with that. So it's not giving us the best, idea of the overall situation in terms of the, like at University of Florida the other day, their anemometer was up there with that measured gust to 78 miles an hour. It was I think, 100 feet above ground there, something like that. So just something to kind of bear in mind. Something, in terms of, just the overall numbers in terms of the measurements. But 18-mile-an-hour gust now here on my anemometer east of Stark. I see a viewer from Palm Coast wants an update, so let me go ahead and see what's going on there. Not in your area yet, but what kind of, see what's going on and give an update for Palm Coast there. So let's go ahead and do some measurements here. Okay, so that line around Gainesville, it's coming into Gainesville pretty quick, by the way. Let me see, the speed on that is, let me check the information here. So we're talking about east there at about 30 miles an hour. So, and I hear a wind picking up here east of Stark, by the way, in a pretty pronounced way. But okay, so we're watching things carefully here. If this holds together, if we don't get pop-up stuff out ahead, it's about 2 hours away from Palm Coast with this storm accident, give or take. As we go ahead and get back into Stark, though, we're getting some pretty strong winds around here now. As we look at the different spots. Let me see what I have in my anemometer, see if it's gotten any higher. This 18 so far. This 18 so far. And I look at the information, but just continue to watch things very carefully here in toward the weather center. Let me go ahead and keep looking at the details I hear our rain coming down now here around this dark, area. It's coming on in, maybe a little bit of small hail in here. It could be a pea-sized hail, something like that, coming on in. I know that time arrival tool did a pretty good job, I'd say, because I posted about an hour ago that it'd be here around 110 in the ward areas of Bradford. And, Stark here soon after that is what you could kind of tell by that graphic. And here we are, about 115, and it's coming right on through here. So just putting the speed in and then putting the arrow out, and does the rest there in terms of the calculation. So again, just some really good technology here, Baron technology. If you're following me over on Facebook, on Twitter/X, you would have seen that. If not, follow me there on Twitter/X there at Cloud Casey, and then over on Facebook there are either Casey Cloud WX or Clouds Weather. So a couple different ways there on Facebook to follow me. Also a way on Twitter/X to follow me with all those different social media graphic details. I know I'll always be posting them over on Facebook, Casey Cloud WX. I share them a lot of times to Clouds Weather on Facebook. Not always the ones I post from the Baron system. I did for this one though, trying to give you guys a heads up. But I know for the moment we don't have a new warning on this. We'll see though. These look like some pretty strong winds. It may just be taking just a moment because we have 57 miles an hour showing up on the pixeling here. Just on the overall details that we're seeing. And to look at our pixel queries, you have some pretty strong winds coming into Briceville now, so that's power outages possible there. If you try to give you the very latest, try to update you. I know in Gainesville you see some heavy rain there around Williston Road. Some of the stronger winds coming into Rochelle there, it looks like. And then you see we did have a gust of 39 at Tallahassee Airport. And we do have a new significant weather advisory now out here toward Thomasville. Let's see what they're saying for the winds over there. Okay, they're saying winds there on that, as I look through the information, to about 40 miles an hour a possibility. As I go to the home view, we'll go to the Jacksonville radar, Nassau, Duval. You have a situation here where strong storms coming in, no new warning yet. I know we're getting a heavy downpour, some gusty winds here around Stark. Don't see the trees blowing too much at the moment, but definitely some heavy rain in here coming across Stark right now. Don't really see the lightning too much, but it doesn't take much to get a strike or two, and that could be dangerous cloud to ground. But this is kind of an interesting line because you don't necessarily think of it here. You don't necessarily think of it here as, if you're not hearing those rumbles of thunder, as being threatening, but it could be here. It could be threatening toward your area with some wind damage potential with, not maybe the severe type criteria, but enough to cause some problems here and there. So you see our patterns map again. Let's go over to it a different way. You see into where Gilchrist 1,000 out, Alachua 2,500 out, Columbia 100 out, 200 out in Swanee, 900 out in Dixie, 300 out in Levy, 100 out in Duval there, 300 out in North South Georgia as we're looking up into that area, Brooks County. So officially don't have any warnings now, but I want to stick with this because this isn't just your random burst of wind energy. This is more sustained, granted maybe not peaking out quite as high, but it's over a lot more of the area, quite a bit of the area getting these winds of 40 to 55 miles an hour and the gust potential, at least, that gust potential 40 to 55 miles an hour. Not everybody's going to get that, but a lot of you guys have that potential to get that at least. And here's a new warning. So I gone ahead and issued a new warning on this now toward the Jacksonville Airport. So 145 Duval, Nassau, Again, just trying to give you guys the very latest here on the situation. Just trying to give you the very latest here on the scenario. Let me read the information off from the Weather Service there. That's just coming on in. Okay, so at 1:17, a severe thunderstorm was located over Briceville, or 12 miles southwest of Callahan, moving east about 20 miles an hour there. Jacksonville, Callahan, Jacksonville International Airport, Cisco Gardens, Nassau Village, Ratliff, Ocean Way, Briceville, Baldwin, and Talleyrand being impacted. So, till 1:45 now, severe thunderstorm warning, severe thunderstorm moving east about 20 miles an hour. So, see some of these stronger winds here on the velocity scans. 45, 49, 41. Still some pretty strong winds here toward Bradford, Alachua County as well. Even some stuff in South Georgia. Looks like it's trying to get its act together a little bit, so we'll have to monitor that toward Waycross. Let's check that over the last little bit. You can kind of see that trend, and that was taking a little bit. So let's go ahead and put that like an hour loop and do 5-minute increments. So you can kind of see here how it's seemingly getting a little bit more of the magenta color showing up in some of those spots. See some of that magenta here in the ward parts of Bradford County or in Hampton, maybe a little bit of small hail around Navarre Avenue. Maybe just off toward the east there, going toward the Theresa area. RV resort going to have some nasty weather coming on in the next few moments. The north may slip just north of them. We'll see based on these scans. But let me go ahead and see where else we want to go with this. We're going to go ahead and look at our forecast model. So just watching the overall progression of things here. And then this loop through one more time, by the way. You see more stuff coming in pretty early tomorrow, by the way. But we might be more stabilized here later on. So like when we're doing our 5:30, so we may not have warning concerns even, leading up to that here today, because we'll be more stabilized here with less instability. The temperature trends tell that out to the west here in general. Have that kind of drop further off toward the east that putting it into the temperatures. So again, just trying to keep you up to date on things. Again, severe thunderstorm warning for parts of Nassau and Duval to 145. 55 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour there with the wind coming on there, at least. But it could be up to 60 with the severe warning in play for parts of Nassau and Duval. So it's got to be very mindful. This is headed toward the airport. The airport's right where this radar site is. And you can see where it is. And so zoom on in here on that Doppler technology. So coming up there, as we look from maybe just north of downtown Jacksonville. You can see some of the areas that could get impacted. Harbor View is in there, Norwood, Brentwood, College Park, Biscayne Village there, Ocean Way, Dunn Creek. So severe thunderstorm warning effect up that way. Another rain's really coming down here around Stark, where I'm at right now here in Bradford County. So look on down in here. Just trying to give you guys the very latest on things as the scenario progresses. Looking at some of the different roadways. See down toward Hampton. Getting a little bit of a skit showing up here, which indicates a little bit stronger activity here around the Bradford County Fairgrounds, it looks like. Saying only 20% chance of hail, though, so at least a little bit of good news. But, it could be happening. I mean, we had a 20% chance of a watch being issued yesterday. We got a severe thunderstorm watch out toward the Tallahassee area, so just always have to stay vigilant. I know some of the different wind reports. Look at all these reports west of our area. We had some gusty winds like around Panama City this morning, but You can see Tallahassee 39, but we had 41 there, Taylor County, but further south in that region there, you had 51 miles an hour. So that really tells a story. Looking around Steinhatchee there, Swanee Springs area, 55 miles an hour, 45 in Lake City. Like, I didn't have any official warnings here until this area up in here, but as we see new advisory, by the way, come out. It's a situation we had some stuff that was just on the edge of severe. 58 is severe, 55 is technically not, but it was still causing some issues. So I wanted to be on the side of caution here by jumping in with coverage, and you can see have outages. Pretty widespread area here in north central Florida, eastern Big Bend. And that's spreading off toward the east here. Rain's still coming down here east to Stark. Let me see what my rain gauge is showing now. I'm going to zoom back on in here right around Stark. Let me loop this the past 15 minutes. I'll be running that as I check my rain gauge. Up to 0.16 inches there on the rain gauge. So about a tenth and a half of rain on the rain gauge so far. Down to 76 degrees, by the way. And our Top Cat talking about getting in the Stark area. And then Roy's talking about an area there out toward the west. I know, just trying to give you guys the very latest on things the best I can. So let me just check some information here real quick. Yeah, Freeport's west of our area there, out toward Walton County. I'll just see the broad view really quick here. Just some random accent there on the Doppler right now as we're looking over there. And we'll look at the forecast model here with you. Still a scattering of accent as we look out that way, but maybe early tomorrow, though, that's when things should really pick up based on that. But let's get back to the home view. I know, looking here at our information, just trying to see where I want to go next as I try to keep you informed. Try to keep you up to date. You see Ware County there, special weather statement at 2 o'clock. Just trying to watch things the best I can here with the overall meteorology. Let's show you the severe weather outlook here. See the risk going downstate as we monitor things. Not a formal tornado risk, but we'll have to see down in Central Florida things can come together for something later on. I know, speaking of, anomalies, however you say that word, let's just call it abnormalities. We'll do that here early on this Monday afternoon. But I know, speaking of abnormalities, we did have an interesting situation, anomalies here, in the meteorological setup here as we were looking further up in southeast Georgia, north of our area last night. But I want to just show you this here real quick. We're going to go back. Let's go back. We got to go back 24 hours on the radar, and we'll do 30-minute increments because they got absolutely hammered around Hinesville, Georgia last night. You can't seem to be all of it there. And I was, maybe clicking around too. But if you'll see it here, let's get rid of the statement that came on up there. But it's a situation where they had about 6 inches of rain around Hinesville, Georgia, just north of our area yesterday. Had a severe thunderstorm warning, a tornado warning, and a flash flood warning. It was only like 20 miles north of our area. So they definitely got hammered up there on Hinesville. I know you don't necessarily see the red box in there because it was going so quick, but, it didn't last for long. But it's an interesting storyline north of our area, how they got hammered up there. As we get back locally, though, right now on the Doppler scan, you can kind of see here what we're talking about with 45, 50 mile an hour winds, 49 here coming on in from Nassau into Duval. You can see Ingle, Briceville. It's got a rumble of thunder, by the way, here east of Stark. So if you guys were wondering about, the situation here toward Bradford, let's see where that lightning was because we should be able to see where it was. I'm actually getting a few strikes in here, but it's obviously the one that's flashing that I just heard a rumble of thunder from. So we're seeing a little bit of maybe intensification with some of this here. I know lightning's not always that sign, just a few strikes, but right there near the fairgrounds, we had a skit there, an indicator of some strength there just a little while ago, and right in here, right near Northeast 25th Lane. Just had a lightning strike. So let's go to currents. Let's go to county power outage total. 100, 200, 500, 900, 1500, 100, 300, 200. But probably starting to get some here in Bradford. Briceville, Engle, Verde here. Severe thunderstorm warning for at least 15 more minutes. 53 miles an hour, 44. Again, just trying to give you the latest. Trying to keep you up to date. I see another area of some enhancement. Let's look over here, 55. Western Duval County here, moving in toward Garden Street. Just being very mindful of the scenario. Just checking some other sources here behind the scenes right now. I'm going to try to get a Florida 511 perspective up here in just a moment. Bear with me. Just trying to give you the very latest on things. Looking at some of the different roadways here. Just a one-man band, but see if I can pull something up here. We'll look around Dinsmore there. Let's pull this view on in. Give me just a moment. You can see the darkening skies, the wind picking up, kind of like how it was here around Stark just a few minutes ago with our accent, but actually have a little bit higher end potential up here with this area up toward Duval and Nassau because there's a severe thunderstorm warning in play. See that camera Roy Sakin. Hear thunder, by the way, around Stark, now here in Bradford County. Again, just trying to give you an idea of everything going on. Again, tracking the conditions here the best I can. It's all about keeping you safe and informed. Let me go ahead and keep checking some things here. Just trying to look at the latest data points. Again, reading through some stuff here behind the scenes. Again, severe thunderstorm warning continues. Strong storms continue in other spots if you're not under that severe thunderstorm warning. Just thanks so much for tuning in and trusting me. And you can get automated alerts there over on Facebook there, Clouds Weather, for instance. So, I know we were actually on ahead of it today because of what we were tracking with the strong storm potential. But with the severe thunderstorm warnings, you get those automated alerts, especially when you have the stuff that pops up more than just the linear mode, like what we're seeing here. You're able to kind of be more aware of the overall scenario, a little more aware of the overall scenario. I heard another rumble of thunder around Stark. If we have something that pops up real quick, it takes me a moment to get on sometimes. That's why it's so important to have different ways to look at the alerts there. And you have the app too, maybe. You know, if you have the app, then that'll really help you. Under the Cloud Weather app, download that today there in the Google Play Store, Cloud apostrophe S Weather. So Cloud Weather is how it's listed, or in the Apple App Store, it's listed there as KC Cloud Weather. So again, just trying to give you guys the very latest here on this scenario. Trying to give you the very latest on the situation. Trying to keep you updated. As I sit back down here at the weather computer for now, seeing some of these stronger winds coming on in. You can see there west of Spalding. Again, just monitoring the situation carefully. Gainesville Airport, a gust of 44 at 118. Again, just trying to keep you informed. Temperature drops significantly here east of Stark with these storms coming on through. Down in the mid-70s now. And Bradford does have some power outages too. Alachua, Bradford, Baker, Union, some outages. Not showing up on this mode yet, but let's see how storms have progressed on the satellite mode. We'll zoom in here. See how things have kind of generally progressed west to east there. That formation there out toward the Big Bend, but really strengthening like around Perry into the east. That's where started really seeing the power outage numbers pick on up there on our map. As I go back over there, you can see Taylor County in the east. We have everybody with those counties there, east, north central, slash the areas there in the eastern Big Bend with outages. I mean, that's pretty noteworthy. As we look, I know, zooming on in, I don't normally do it like this, but you kind of see what I'm talking about here as we have more thunder. This is another way to visualize the power outage details. And you can definitely see what we're talking about here toward the areas there from Madison to Taylor to Hamilton, Swanee, Lafayette, Dixie, Gilchrist, Columbia there, Baker, Union, Bradford, Alachua, Levy. So definitely noteworthy. As we had this warning here, they may extend us all the way to the beaches based on some of these velocity signatures. Just have to wait and see, but 49 miles an hour, 51. It's coming up right toward the Dinsmore area, Biscayne Village, around New Keynes Road. Ocean Way, Dunn Creek here, of course, the airport, as we keep talking about. Jacksonville International Airport, of course, that's where the radar is, as you can tell by the cone of silence here. That's, why we don't have, like, radar data coming in from there, because it's too close to the ground level to get it in that little circled zone. And then you have a situation where that's where the Weather Service is located. The Jacksonville Weather Service office is located there as well. Let's reset this here on the view. Let's go 1 hour hail. That's where I wanted to go. I want to see if we had any hail in here. Not really seeing it, but there was a chance maybe for some pea-sized hail. I mean, our Barron button's been showing some of that here with these purples, these pinks. Again, just trying to give you the latest. Trying to keep you up to date. Trying to keep you informed. Let me do something else here real quick. Gonna remind you guys of our coverage area. Of course, I'm in Bradford County, but trying to give you the latest for the 38 counties. And just remember, whenever thunder roars, go indoors. Just trying to stay on top of things here. Just looking through some graphical details, some graphics. Let me put a graphic in here that I have. We're going to see some wind gust. So there's a look at the view of this. You can kind of see. This is the broad sense. Granted, some areas like in Gainesville did have a gust a little while ago at 44 miles an hour. So just kind of trying to tell that weather story here as we're looking at the overall situation. Of course, we still have this warning on a hyperlocal level. So have this looking like it's pretty interesting. You know, we're kind of having to look up a little bit higher on some of this. And the Jacksonville radar, let me just make sure we're on that because it's really kind of cutting it short, I guess, because the way they have it at certain modes and just the way the rain is right there at this site. I mean, it's cutting things, you know, where we can't really see the velocities as good further south, but have some stronger winds there, 27, 26. Maybe a little stronger than that, though, in southeastern Alachua around Lockaloosa. Moving toward Lake Susan Road. Let me go ahead and where do I want to go next with this? We're going to look at storm energy again. You know, we're going to see a reduction in that, which should help us out in terms of being more stable and not having severe storms like pop up on us this evening, even though we do have the marginal risk right now. As we're looking, you can see some of those higher numbers at this moment, some up even higher, though, in the actual real-time scenario. As I get back here into Bradford County, though, see some lightning as we look here. Right, you know, between Stark and Laurie around the fairgrounds, some rumbles of thunder, you know. You're hearing those, and it's around Treat Road with that latest strike in the last minute. That's what that flashing indicator means when it flashes. That means it's happened in the last 60 seconds. That's the power of this technology here that we give you here at Cloud Weather. As I go ahead and look here at more information. You can kind of see 35, 47 with the winds here. Again, trying to keep you up to date. Trying to keep you up to date on the scenario. Remember, whenever thunder roars, go indoors. It's so important. Marginal risk of severe weather today. Doesn't mean we won't get severe weather tomorrow, but there's no formal risk on here right now or for a Wednesday, but have to wait and see. Go to the forecast model. And again, you can see how we have more of it coming on in later on in the overnight. So kind of an interesting timeline. Seems like every day things are getting earlier and earlier with our storms, and it's the overall setup. I mean, we were having to be with you here on that Friday. It was pretty late, you know, in the 5 o'clock hour. We had some stuff in the 4 o'clock too there. We were looking, and on Saturday, had to be with you. I think started at 2 o'clock hour. Sunday was in the noon hour, the lunch hour there. And then today, same type of story, but it was, you know, just a situation where we were watching stuff further west. Earlier on, we had a warning just west of our area there in the 11 o'clock hour. So in our old area, Liberty and Franklin, where we used to cover, but Again, just trying to keep you up to date. Winds look a little weaker near the airport radar, but I'm just going to continue to update you. See up toward Waycross, Delaware County. See some of that lightning there on Swamp Road. Again, just trying to keep you informed. Got some of this coming towards St. Augustine through about 2:15. I know a viewer was asking about Palm Coast earlier on. I know that threat, it may get there just a tad bit earlier than what I was saying as we're looking, but we'll just have to wait and see. Let me see what they're tracking these speeds at right now. I'm going to look here. They're tracking east at 20. So let's give you another update for Palm Coast. I mean, that makes it even later. I don't know about that. I mean, the way these are going, 2:15. I mean, I can go ahead and measure. Let's see how far it's gone in an hour. We start back out here and we get, I mean, it's about 30 miles in 1 hour. I mean, I may not be measuring at the best, but somewhere along that line there. So yeah, more, the early 3 o'clock hour probably makes the most sense. The warning went away officially for now. It looks like there's been a little bit of decay up there, granted, we're right near the radar site, right near where I mean, that's right where the storm is, right there near the airport weather service. And it might be getting obscured a little, so we'll have to just see if they get some type of anemometer reading or something that gets as close to severe. That probably is another warning downstream. But right now it's an advisory to 2:15 as we're looking at the situation here. Again, just trying to update you the best I can. This stuff here is considered strong out toward Thomasville, maybe gusts about 40. Thomas County. Got some wind there. Let's see what we have on this mode down Western Putnam to get there. West of Interlaken on Hawthorne. Just continuing to watch the progression of things. Now, let me do something else here. No, we're going to do 24-hour rainfall. And we've had our stuff, become a little bit more widespread. Granted, this isn't showing all of it yet. I mean, 3-hour kind of do a little bit better job showing the coverage of it, especially once we got to about Perry eastward with the progression. 24-hour rainfall. I mean, the one area that really stands out is north of our area. They really, again, this is north of our area, but it wasn't that far north of our area. They got hit really hard there around Hinesville last night as we were looking up toward like Liberty County, Georgia. Some areas here got about 6 inches of rain, so a little less on this, but they had about 6 inches of rain up there last night, which was just, not a good situation. They had a tornado warning, a flash flood warning, severe thunderstorm warning there. They have some more rain right there. That's north of our area, but just, we were close to having, it's not a trifecta you want to have at all, but, that's what it kind of is, having all three of those warnings for parts of that county at different points there in the overall timeline. So let's get back down to the south. You can kind of see here, if you look in northern Duval County, have this advisory to 2:15. Let me see, Beauclair right now, San Jose, some pretty heavy rain, maybe some gusty winds in there. Let me see if we have some observations I can look at. Appreciate everybody tuning in and trusting me. I see Nicole watching there as I look at the questions, comments. Appreciate you tuning in as well here on this Monday, on this 13th day here of July 2026. Okay, got a 41-mile-an-hour wind gust there at 29 past the hour at Cecil Field in Jacksonville. Okay, the Herline Airport just had a 40-knot gust here in the last 15 minutes. 40 knots. So we're talking about winds there to about 46 miles an hour. Keystone Airport had a 27-knot wind gust here. That was recently. So we're talking about winds there, southeastern Bradford County to 31 miles an hour. I know toward Flagler County, there's still instability of over 4,000 joules per kilogram, but I don't know. We'll see if this kind of has a chance to re-strengthen as it gets closer down there or not. Jefferson County had a gust of 42. I didn't think that stuff was too impressive back out there, but I toward the Big Bend gust of 42 recently out that way. So definitely a little bit of that wind enhancement in different spots as we're looking at the overall mapping. Just trying to keep you safe and informed here. Trying to update you. Looks like 23 people watching right now on YouTube. Just appreciate everybody tuning in and trusting me here. Because I'm going to go back over to the weather computer right now. Track some more of this storm activity. Seeing some of this wind move through. Again, the warning went away, so that was good. We've had a couple warnings here. We'll back it up a whole hour. We had a couple warning yellow boxes. They went away for now, but we'll have to just see if we get closer to severe criteria. Again, I'm sure some people are going to lose power in Duval if they haven't already. I'm sure some already have. I mean, kind of saw that out ahead, but I'm talking about from the storm activity. I know, just heading so Bradford with outages, but we're seeing some other maps that showed that. But Putnam has 2,000 out, 100 out in Clay, 3,500 out in Alachua, 100 out in Columbia, 100 out in Swanee, 400 out in Dixie, 500 out in Gilchrist, 100 out in Levy, 100 out in Marion, 900 out in Leon, 300 out in Brooks. So quite a few outages here as we're looking. And all those actually were in areas where we didn't necessarily have a warning, but again, doesn't take a warned storm, doesn't take 60-mile-an-hour winds sometimes. The way this pattern was setting up today to get power outages, isolated power outages, possible the 40 to 55-mile-an-hour gusts that we've been seeing, 45, 55-mile-an-hour gusts we've been seeing different spots here reported. I mean, that gust reported earlier in Hamilton County to 55 miles an hour at 11:40 a.m. A gust there in toward the Steen Hatch area, 51 miles an hour, 11:29 a.m. Kind of telling that weather story. I mean, Lake City was 45 miles an hour. We had 44 at Gainesville Airport here since we've been on. We had 41 there. I mean, you had 39 in Tallahassee and 42 there in Jefferson County. Tropical storm force is 39 or above. So quite a few tropical storm force wind gusts here on this Monday afternoon. Again, just trying to keep you up to date on the very latest. Just looking at all the different information here in the Weather Center. I know it's really too early to get into any type of real details, but some of the models, the AI models there, the artificial intelligence weather models, they're kind of hinting at maybe some tropical development toward the weekend, toward the Gulf. We'll see if that sets up like that or not. It's too early to really know one way or the other, but we could see an enhancement of rainfall in that type of scenario, even if it doesn't actually develop tropically. So something to watch for. I'll try to have more on that at 5:30 tonight. But see a few lightning strikes. We were just seeing some flashes in this rain here back behind, even without the heavier downpours. That's always kind of concerning. You're seeing this light rain. You're thinking, okay, it's safe for me to go outside. Not necessarily sometimes, because you can still get some of these lightning strikes here, these, rumbles of thunder in a situation where is, way away from the heavier downpours. You're in the lighter rain and you still get some lightning. Some of this could be cloud to ground. So got to be very vigilant in that regard. I'm looking parts of Putnam County here. You see Marion County, some lightning here east of Bellevue, around Candler. I know, between Hawthorne and Interlochen, seeing some of this there on State Road 20. Green Cove Springs about to get into some of this there. Again, parts of southern Duval County, the south side, over towards San Jose Forest there, San Jose, Deerwood Club, Sunbeam, Beauclair getting into some of this. It's not quite severe in nature, but it's not far off. I mean, these winds are maybe not quite doing it justice because we did have a gust there. I was talking about some of those gusts we were having there toward the area just the last little bit. You can see 41 miles an hour at Cecil Field at 129. So may just be the way the radar is hitting things, but looks a little stronger right here, coming into southeastern Nassau County. You see Black Hammock there in Franklintown, American Beach, Nassauville there. Some of that potential coming up on in. Let's go to our other radar, the Moody radar, for a second opinion because we're just right at it. We're so close right now. It's a situation here. Just watching this progress, and that definitely looks pretty intense on that area right there. Let's go to the Jacksonville radar. I gotta switch over to Jacksonville radar, and then I go to the Barron button. And maybe some small hail in here. Could be a ½ inch in size, maybe an inch. I mean, I don't think it's an inch, but this has a tendency to overdo it a little. But as we kind of look here at the information, we're just trying to update you the best we can. Let's look at this mode. Not that mode. That's the one. If we ever have stuff on that mode, we're going to have an issue because that actually, in the severe weather season, we'll actually be able to see different areas pop out with debris tracker. But this is what I want to look at here for hail potential. Maybe a little bit right in here. It's possible. We're so close to the radar, though, it's hard to know for sure. East of Bellevue, some lightning. Again, western Putnam County. I mean, it's around Melrose here. You guys are getting into it pretty good. South side of Melrose still, but it's one of the worst kind of passing on by. But again, trying to give you the very latest. Trying to keep you up to date here. Watching for 38 counties. Just trying to be here for you. Let me go ahead and jump back. Sometimes in the geography here of our system, it wants to not show cities until I get so close. I actually just change the setting from Melrose so it'll show a little bit further out on the map now so we can kind of do a little bit better job of warning you guys sometimes down there because you can see it's showing pretty far out here on the map now as I go ahead and loop things. We just had some pretty nasty weather coming through. By the way, if you don't know about Melrose here, I mean, it's right on the line of 4 different counties. I mean, you get a different part of the country where, you have multiple borders coming together. Well, we have 4 borders that come together right around Melrose there. I mean, as you look, this kind of an intriguing thing. They're not exactly like perfectly aligned necessarily in that regard, but you have 4 different counties right here. It's kind of intriguing to talk about. I mean, you have Clay County. I'm just going to get my bearings. Yeah, okay, I'm looking at this right. Clay County up in here. Then you have, and it's hard to write because it's so small the way it's drawn, but this is Bradford. It might kind of cover the line a little, go across it, but you kind of get the idea. This is Bradford here. As I click on it, and it kind of tells me that. Probably, yeah, we'll just do it like that because this is kind of hard to read. We'll just click on them. That's the best way to do it. Okay, so Bradford, Clay, Alachua, and Putnam. So you kind of get the idea there as we're looking at the information. It come, together pretty closely right in here. As you see the different counties, the overall geography here. So as we keep you informed, You can see here northern parts of Duval, some stronger winds, 55 miles an hour. So just under severe. I mean, coming up toward Nassauville there and Amelia City, American Beach. Just trying to give you guys the very latest. Trying to update you. Just be inside, be away from windows. I know you have some that water. This might allow for maybe a little bit of that wind there. Just is right, right at the axle spot where you go from water to land to water. It might be a little bit enhanced there with the wind if you're right there. You do have a marine warning here in play. Just got to be really careful there on the boats, things like that. Don't want to be adding this really if you can avoid it. Could be pretty dangerous. The small crafts is what we really worry about. Let's go back to power outage information. See quite a few in terms of the percentage they're out in Putnam now. You see quite a few different spots in the viewing circle with some outages here this afternoon. So definitely worth noting. Let's see your rainfall from the Jacksonville site, 3-hour accumulation. 0.9, 1.1. A little less here. Just east of Stark, only 0.3, so it's hit and miss sometimes are the worst. We look at the information. Trying to keep you up to date on things. Again, that looks pretty nasty around Putnam. We have a lot of energy down here, so I wouldn't completely just, bet against some of this here as we're looking at the overall situation. Here in Marion, some of that'll probably be more. Let's watch the loop on here. It's really forming down there, but I would say more Volusia, but it may clip Flagler here depending on how this is tracking. On the south side of Jacksonville, getting some heavy rain, some lightning there. Beauclair, Sunbeam, Deerwood Club, and the heaviest wind maybe out here towards Stockade. About to moving into Sawgrass, Ponte Vedra Beach, Palm Valley there. Some stronger winds about to moving in, 40, 50 mile an hour gusts possibly, somewhere in that range. Let's go back. We'll go 2 hours on the loop, and I'll do a broad loop here. And let's do it from Valdosta. And do 5-minute increments. Take the sweep off. So there you go. Kind of watch the progression of this move across the region here, North Central, Northeast Florida especially. Had a couple of yellow boxes pop in there for a time. Again, because of all the instability, I wouldn't necessarily rule out some concern. I'll use the yellow pen. Don't want to use the red because I don't want to, scare folks. But, just kind of as I draw this around live on the fly here, of course, the thread will be going south of our area too, but kind of sticking in our area. But somewhere, just in this zone here, give or take. Just wouldn't completely rule out here maybe, a warning or two because of the more unstable air mass that we're seeing. So just kind of keep that in mind. Wouldn't rule out a warning or two down there towards St. Augustine or Palaca, Palm Coast, Flagler Beach because let's see the temperatures. Let's go over the temperatures here because you have a situation where it is still very warm over there compared to like Lake City and Lake Butler. Have the more unstable air mass. So just something to kind of bear in mind. More instability. This is more like what you would see in the spring months. Granted, we don't have all the parameters in play, but a little more like what you see in the spring months with a squall line. Or since we didn't have many warnings, I mean, I was looking up the definition of a squall line earlier, and we did end up having a couple warnings, but it's more when you have a bunch of severe weather along the line. You call it a squall line, but we'll just call it this a line of storms here meteorologically. So again, we do have a front involved here with the overall weather pattern, so it's not, exactly though like what you get in the spring months. Just wanted to be, I was looking at the official definition up earlier, just wanted to make sure, I thought about putting that in the description here, but since we weren't seeing severe, then I didn't want to overhype this. We did end up getting a couple warnings, but, squall line really talks about more of the severe type of definition with the winds of 58 or above, or the hail potential or a tornado potential, which we don't have too much of today here toward our area. We'll pay attention to this in case the boundaries come together. That's kind of what happened last night up toward Hinesville, Georgia, with some rotation potential. I mean, they had, again, that trifecta of warnings up there, just a little north of our area there up toward like Liberty County, Georgia. They had a severe thunderstorm warning, a tornado warning, a flash flood warning up there. They had about 6 inches of rain, some big flooding, big time problems toward Hinesville, Georgia, just a little north of our area. It wasn't a threat toward our area, so I didn't post about it as it was heading more off toward the east there. But we had some training, convection, just all sorts of issues up there. So just got to always pay attention. We kind of had something a little similar, but a little less impactful than that toward Brunswick, northern side. Really talking about northern Glen. I want to call it Brunswick, but really, that's not accurate. North of Brunswick, there in Glenn County, last Sunday, a week ago Sunday, we had all those storm reports there, wind issues, flooding issues there. It was, 5 inches in an hour there. It was really a situation where that, not really in Brunswick. They didn't get that much in Brunswick. It's really, some of the neighborhoods north of Brunswick. So again, looking here at the Doppler Palm Valley, though. Watching that, and we're not seeing a whole bunch of lightning further up, but we are seeing it down here. So 27 miles an hour with the wind. Just checking some things here. Again, I would not rule out a warning there in that southeastern periphery. So we just have to kind of remain alert there, like around Palm Coast, St. Augustine's in here. Just kind of remain alert in that corridor here the next little bit. So doesn't always happen, but just with the, summertime air mass here, so humid. I mean, let's look at the heat index values here. I mean, over 100 there in Palatka, pretty close to St. Augustine, Palm Coast. And just got to be careful of the unstable air mass down there. We'll probably, since we don't have any active warnings, I'll probably just have this turn into a radar stream. And if we get any more warnings, we'll pop back in. I just wanted to be here, especially right around Stark to Gainesville to Jacksonville when we had, stuff that was maybe edging towards severe, or at least even if it wasn't severe, just to kind of letting you guys know here that there was some concern with the more organized linear structure with some more widespread gusty winds, heavy rain versus the pop-up stuff we've been seeing, and a potential for some power outages like what we've seen here. But do want to, leave the radar going here. We have our show at 5:30, so I'll have to get ready for that here. And, cut the stream here at some point, but we'll probably be able to keep this going here until this pretty much gets off the coast. Of course, if we got a warning, we'll be back here on the stream with you. But we'll just leave it as a radar stream here soon since we don't have any active warnings. But they're tracking this east at 20. I was thinking a little bit faster than that. Let's do 25 with the track. So we'll do 25 miles an hour with a track here. Okay, so let's do like 27 based on what some of the calculations I was looking at behind the scenes here. Well, and really just on the air with you too with the measuring tool. But Palm Valley moving in about now. Palatka at 217, Willaca 223, Hastings at 227, Pomona Park at 234, Crescent City there 245, St. Augustine 246, St. Augustine Beach 255, and Pearson there at 303. Pearson's getting out of our area, but we still have some of Flagler to get through in that 3 o'clock hour. So We'll have this stream going here probably until a little past 3, depending on how things set up. Unless this really fades, then we might cut it early. But I don't think it's going to fade here necessarily. And then we do have to get ready for a 5:30 show. So we'll be, if we get a warning though, we'll be on no matter what, obviously. But we'll leave this running here probably for another hour, maybe a little bit longer than that. So of course, a lot of the other areas are more stable. Though we do have some stuff technically strong in towards south. Central Georgia area around Thomasville and east of there. So let's look at power outages real quick and see that no outages there, but Brooks County has some, and you see quite a few scattered along, the different county names there and county, information there scattered along that screen, as we're looking at things. So let's go ahead and we'll loop this around the past hour. We'll continue to keep you up to date if we need to with more coverage. Let me just go ahead and kind of leave this running here for now. And we'll wrap coverage for the time being. But if I need to get another warning, I'll pop back in. If something really pops up, I'll be with you. Seeing some uptick in lightning there in eastern Marion, so we'll have to watch. Very well could get another warning. So I'll be back live with you if we get another warning. But otherwise, we'll just leave the radar running here for now as we track things off toward the coast. I appreciate you tuning in and trusting me here on this Monday, but I'll have our show at 5:30. If nothing else, we'll leave this running for a while longer, an hour or so. But if I need to pop back in, I'll come back in with audio here with the latest information to protect you, your friends, and your family. Let me see if there are any questions, comments from any of the viewers at home. Kind of see if we have anything else there over in the chat. Don't see anything right now, but just appreciate you tuning on in here on this Monday. I'll be back here for the show at 5:30, but I'll break back in if we get another warning, which is very possible. And just keep it tuned to cloud weather. I'll keep you guys up to date. We got about 4/10 of an inch of rain here east of Stark, down to 72 degrees right now, so more stay wear a mask. But I'll be watching to see if any more yellow boxes pop up or any more enhanced concern happens. Still could have some power up. We will still have some power as it's happening further in our southeastern areas here, but not officially warned. But giving you that heads up here for sure. And if we get more warnings, we'll be back with continuous coverage. So that's the story for now. Stay safe whenever thunder roars. Go indoors and just take these storms seriously. With this wind potential, still could knock down some trees and power lines in an isolated manner, even without a warning being in place. So just stay safe out there.